We've been following King Aswapati in his journey to find the power which is able to make life on earth a divine life. And for that he has been led through many levels of consciousness and many worlds. And recently we were reading about how he had to descend into the lowest, deepest, darkest worlds of falsehood, and what that meant. So we followed down into those depths. But now we have emerged along with King Aswapati. When he came to the deepest, darkest level, there he found a secret. He found the secret key of nature's change. And just finding that key, seeing, assimilating that knowledge, changed everything for him. He doesn't even have to go anywhere. He doesn't have to travel any further. He's just picked up and carried and thrown up into the paradise of the life gods. So last week we started reading this canto, book 2, canto 9, the paradise of the life gods. It may be the shortest canto in the poem, but it's a very, very beautiful one. And we stopped on page 235 at line 81. So I'm going to read on from there to the end of the canto, and then we will go back and look in more detail. Page 235. I'll start reading at line 82. All life's high visions are embodied there in that paradise. Her wandering hopes achieved, her aureate combs caught by the honey-eater's darting tongue, her burning guesses changed to ecstasied truths, her mighty pantings stilled in deathless calm, and liberated her immense desires. In that paradise of perfect heart and sense, no lower note could break the endless charm of her sweetness, ardent and immaculate. Her steps are sure of their intuitive fall. After the anguish of the soul's long strife, at length were found calm and celestial rest, and lapped in a magic flood of sorrowless hours, healed were his warrior nature's wounded limbs in the encircling arms of energies that brooked no stain and feared not their own bliss. In scenes forbidden to our pallid sense, amid miraculous scents lights and wonder hues. He met the forms that divinize the sight. To music that can immortalize the mind and make the heart wide as infinity, listened, and captured the inaudible cadences that awake the occult ear. Out of the ineffable hush, it hears them come, trembling with the beauty of a wordless speech, and thoughts too great and deep to find a voice, thoughts whose desire new makes the universe, a scale of sense that climbed with fiery feet to heights of unimagined happiness, recast his being's aura in joy glow. His body glimmered like a skyey shell. His gates to the world were swept with seas of light. His earth, dowered with celestial competence, harbored a power that needed now no more to cross the closed customs line of mind and flesh and smuggle Godhead into humanity. It shrank no more from the supreme demand of an untired capacity for bliss, a might that could explore its own infinite, and beauty and passion and the depths reply, nor feared the swoon of glad identity, where spirit and flesh in inner ecstasy join, annulling the quarrel between self and shape. It drew from sight and sound spiritual power, made sense a road to reach the intangible. It thrilled with the supernal influences that build the substance of life's deeper soul. Earth nature stood reborn, comrade of heaven, a fit companion of the timeless kings, equaled with the Godheads of the living sons. He mixed in the radiant pastimes of the unborn, heard whispers of the player never seen, and listened to his voice that steals the heart and draws it to the breast of God's desire, and felt its honey of felicity flow through his veins like the rivers of paradise, made body a nectar cup of the Absolute. In sudden moments of revealing flame, in passionate responses half unveiled, he reached the rim of ecstasies unknown. A touch supreme surprised his hurrying heart. The clasp was remembered of the wonderful, and hints leaped down of white beatitudes. Eternity drew close, disguised as love, and laid its hand upon the body of time. A little gift comes from the immensitude, but measureless to life its gain of joy. All the untold beyond is mirrored there. A giant drop of the bliss unknowable overwhelmed his limbs, and round his soul became a fiery ocean of felicity. He foundered, drowned in sweet and burning vasts. The dire delight that could shatter mortal flesh, the rapture that the gods sustain, he bore. Immortal pleasure cleansed him in its waves and turned his strength into undying power. Immortality captured time and carried life.
What do you feel when you read the Savitri?
Delight. Mm-hmm. Delight. So we stopped at line 82, no? 83, 81, 82. Dhanalakshmi, would you begin?
All life's high visions are embodied there. Her wandering hopes achieved, her 𝒉𝒐𝒏𝒆𝒚 caught by the honey eater's darting tongue. Her burning guesses changed to ecstasy truths, her mighty pantings stilled in deathless calm, and liberated her immense desires.
So this is another of the life worlds. This is the paradise of the life gods. And the aspect of life which the poet shares with us here is this life fulfilled. All life's high visions are embodied there. It's not just that they're conceived or dreamed of or longed for. They actually take on solid form. The wandering hopes, the unfulfilled hopes, never satisfied hopes of life, there in that paradise they are achieved, fulfilled. And then he says, her aureate combs, these are the aureate combs of life. It doesn't mean combs for the hair, it means honeycombs. Those wonderful golden structures that the bees make to contain their honey. And that honey is the symbol of Ananda, of pure delight, that sweetness. So those golden honeycombs of all life's sweetness, there in that world, they can be caught. The honey eater's darting tongue. The honey eater are those lovely little birds with long beaks that they can thrust down into the heart of the flowers to sip the nectar. So in that world, life is fulfilled, enjoys all the delights. Even things, he says, her burning guesses. There are perhaps things that life aspires for. Wouldn't it be wonderful if things that would be intense, burning. There, in that world, they are fulfilled. They're not just burning guesses and hopes and longings. They are turned to ecstasied truths. Life's mighty pantings, all the great efforts that she makes, causing her to pant with exertion, there they get stilled. They become quiet and calm, in deathless calm, immortal calm. And all her immense desires, the limitless desires of life, there are liberated, set free to be fulfilled. Would you like to read the next sentence?
In the paradise.
Yes.
In that paradise of perfect earth and sea, no lawyer could pay the endless joy of her sweetness, ardent and immaculate. Her taste assured of their infinite after the knowledge of the soul's launched. To them we found calm and celestial rest, and loved in the waiting crowd of soulless powers. Where his warrior nature's wounded live in the encircling arms of energies that glow no stain and create not their own bliss.
Thank you. In that paradise of perfect heart and sense, it's not just the longings of the heart, it's the experiences of the senses are also perfect. There in that paradise, no lower note. King Āsvapati has passed through such terrible lower worlds with their lower notes. But here in this paradise, those lower notes can't come at all. No lower note could come to break that endless charm, to interrupt it or spoil it or lessen it in any way. The endless charm of life's sweetness, ardent, intense, burning, and immaculate, absolutely pure. There in that world, life's steps are sure. Often in life we wander here and there and we are not sure about our decisions. about which is the right way to take, no. But there in that paradise, the steps of life are sure of their intuitive fall. They know exactly where the steps should fall. No? So 𝒔𝒊𝒇𝒆, who has passed through such suffering, such unbelievable suffering, after the anguish of the soul's long strife, which we have read about in the previous 2 cantos. At length, at last, King 𝒔𝒊𝒇𝒆 founds calm and celestial rest, heavenly rest. And he feels his whole being. Sri Aurobindo uses the word lapped. It means as if you are bathing in a wonderful warm bath. It's surrounding your whole body and making it feel comfortable. No? Lapped in a magic flood of sorrowless hours. Healed were his warrior nature's wounded limbs. He's suffered such terrible wounds in that world of falsehood. We're told that these are wounds which are slow to heal. But now he's come into this paradise, and here are his warrior nature's wounded limbs get healed. And they're healed by the embraces, the encircling arms of energies, forces that don't allow any stain, no impurity, and are not in the least bit afraid of feeling bliss. Gopal, would you read?
In scenes forbidden to our palate sense, amid miraculous sands and wonderful, he made the forms that deny the sight, to music that can immortalize the mind and make the heart wide as infinity, descend and capture the inaudible. Fragrances that awake the occult ear, out of the ineffable hush, it hears them come, trembling with the beauty of a wordless speech, and thoughts too great and deep to find a voice, thoughts whose desire new makes the universe.
So these scenes which he is experiencing now, they are forbidden to our senses. We can't feel them because our senses are simply not capable of feeling them. Our senses are so weak and pale, they can't experience these intense things. He's sensing miraculous scents, wonder hues, colors, and forms. Just seeing those forms that are there in that world, that divinizes the sight, makes the sense of vision divine. So he's listening to music that can immortalize the mind. We can't imagine that music, no, that we will always remember. This music can immortalize the mind and make the heart as wide as infinity, with no limits. He listens to that music, and he can capture the cadences. Cadences are passages in music, cadences that awake the occult ear, the inner hidden ear that enjoys subtle sounds. Those cadences that awake the occult ear, they come out of the ineffable hush, that indescribable, unknowable hush which surrounds the universe. It hears those cadences, those melodies come trembling. Sometimes when there's a very fine singer and the emotion in the music may be such that there's a kind of tremolo, a trembling with the beauty of a wordless speech. It conveys meaning. It's a kind of language, but it doesn't need words, only those beautiful sounds. And he hears thoughts that are too great and deep to find a voice, to be expressed in a voice. And he hears thoughts. There's something about those thoughts. It's full of desire for a new world. Those thoughts, those dreams are capable of remaking the universe. Hemlata.
Scale of sense that climbed with fiery feet to heights of unimagined happiness, recast his beings or in joy glow. His body glimmered like a sky shell. His gates to the world were swept with seas of light. His earth toured with celestial competence, harbored a power that needed now no more to cross the closed customs line of mind and flesh and smuggle Godhead into humanity. It shrank no more from the supreme demand of an untired capacity for bliss, a might that could explore its own infinite, and beauty and passion and the depths reply, nor feared the swoon of glad identity, where spirit and flesh in inner ecstasy join, annulling the quarrel between self and shiv.
Yes, let's pause there. So the experience, Ȧsvapati's experience in that world, is actually transformative. It recast his whole being, not the aura, the vibration, the energy which is spreading in joy glow. It's glowing with joy, with delight. And his whole body is glimmering, giving off light, like a sky shell, as if he's surrounded by a kind of shell of vibrating light. His gates to the world. Our gates to the world are our senses, our sense of touch, of sight, of hearing, of smell, taste. So in that world, King Ȧsvapati finds that his gates to the world, all the openings of the sense organs, are just swept with seas of light. And his earth, his most material part, has been gifted, dowered with, it means gifted with celestial competence, with a power that comes from heaven. Harbors, it contains within itself a power that now no longer needs to cross, such an interesting image he makes here, to cross the closed customs line of mind and flesh, to smuggle Godhead into humanity, as if you have to pass through some kind of border. The mind, the flesh of the body constitute a border, and if we want to experience divinity, we have to secretly somehow smuggle it through that closed borderline. But in this world, in this paradise 𝐾 is experiencing now, it's no longer like that. He's experiencing this power, this might that could explore its own infinite, no limits to it. And it can explore all beauty and passion and the reply that comes from the depths of the being. And it doesn't have to fear anything, the swoon of glad identity, of losing its sense of individuality in this union with this bliss and delight. Spirit and flesh in inner ecstasy join. They're experiencing the same delight. So there's no longer any quarrel, no longer any discord, no longer any discrepancy between self, the individual, and the shape of the being, the inner and the outer being. Kavita, would you like to read?
Drew from sight and sound spiritual power, made sense a road to reach the intangible. It thrilled with the supernal influences that built the substance of life's deeper soul. Earth, nature stood reborn, comrade of heaven, a fit companion of the timeless kings, equal with the godheads of the living suns. He mixed in the radiant pastimes of the unborn. Heard whispers the player never seen, and listen to his voice that steals the heart, and draws it to the breast of God's desire, and felt its honey of felicity flow through his veins like the rivers of paradise, made body a nectar cup of the Absolute.
So beautiful, no? This state that he's experiencing now, there's no contradiction between sense experience and spiritual power. The use of the senses opens up a road to reach what can't be touched, what can't be felt through the senses. That power thrills with the supernal influences. There are influences from very, very high levels of consciousness that build the substance of life's deeper soul. Life has its own soul, and like us, perhaps there are different levels to that soul. But here it's the deeper soul of life that is being nourished, built up. So that for 𝒔𝒊𝒈, earth nature is reborn. It becomes a comrade of heaven. Often we feel this contradiction between the earth nature and the heavenly nature, but that is not the case here. The earth nature becomes a fit companion of the timeless kings, those who are not limited by time at all. Earth nature becomes equal with the Godheads, the divinities of the living sons. So for King 𝒔𝒊𝒈, he's able to mingle and mix in that blissful atmosphere and experience the radiant pastimes of the unborn, the immortal beings. How do they pass their time? How do they amuse themselves? He can join in all that delight. And he hears whispers of the player never seen. When we read about the player with a capital P like that, it must be Lord Krishna playing on his flute. We don't see him, we hear him. So �𝒊𝒈 also is listening to that divine voice that steals away the heart and draws it to the breast of God's desire. That sound is like an embrace of the divine. And 𝒔𝒊𝒈 feels the delight of that flute playing, flowing through all his body, his veins, all his body, like the rivers of paradise, that intense sweetness. So that body itself, substance, becomes like a cup and that's holding the nectar of the Absolute. Nectar is amrita. It's that wonderful drink that brings immortality.
Shraddhavan, the nectar cup of Absolute is supramental.
He's speaking about how the body can be a cup, a container for a divine ecstasy. Lila, would you like to read?
In sudden moments of living flame, in passionate responses half unveiled, he reads the rim of ecstasy unknown. A touch supreme surprised his carrying heart, the clasp one remembered of the wonderful, and hints deep down of white beatitudes. Eternity drew close, disguised as love, and laid its hand upon the bottle of time. A little gift comes from the immensities, but measureless to life its gain of joy. All the untold beyond is mirrored there.
Thank you. So �𝒊𝒈 experiences these sudden moments of revealing flame. It's not only such an intense touch, it also brings a light of revelation. Passionate moments, passionate responses, half unveiled, half seen, half experienced. Through all these experiences, King �𝒊𝒈 reaches the rim, the edge, the margin of unknown ecstasies. A touch supreme surprised his hurrying heart. I'm sure these intense experiences, the heart is indeed hurrying. And he remembers the clasp, the embrace of the wonderful, and hints, reminders leaped down of white beatitudes, blessed, blissful states of utter purity. When one receives an experience like that, it may be only a small gift that comes from those vastnesses, but what it brings to the life then is so much joy. Immense it's measureless to life, its gain of joy in that little drop of bliss that comes. All the untold beyond is mirrored there, reflected there. Tara, would you read the last part, please?
Overwhelmed his limbs, and round his soul became a fiery ocean of felicity. He wandered drowned in sweet and burning lusts, the dire delight that would shatter mortal flesh, the rapture that the gods sustain, he bore. Immortal pleasure cleansed him in its waves, and turned his strength into undying power. Immortality captured time and carried love.
Yes. It's as if just one drop comes and it's such a huge gift, overwhelming his limbs. It's like a fiery ocean of felicity, of bliss. So he drowns, he founders. To founder, it's a verb we use of a sinking ship, ship that comes up against rocks and gets broken. So he foundered, drowned in sweet and burning vasts. This is such an intense experience of delight. It's even dire, says Sri Aurobindo, terrible. That would be enough to shatter, to destroy our mortal bodies. That we just wouldn't be able to bear it at all. No? But this is the rapture that the gods experience. They are strong enough to sustain these intense experiences. And in the case of King Asvapati, this means purification. Immortal pleasure cleansed him in its waves and turned his strength into undying power. Immortality captured time and carried life. So this is a real transformation which will prepare him for the next stage of his journey. As I mentioned, this is one of the shortest cantos in the poem. It tells of such intense experiences, less than 3 pages, but for 𝒔𝒊𝒈𝒂𝒕, this is the compensation for all that terrible suffering that he has gone through in his explorations of the lower levels of life, that he's experienced the bliss, the paradise of the life gods.
You remember Shraddhavan, where is the date when he wrote this, the paradise of the god, the gate of Sri Aurobindo?
There's a poem.
Yeah. But no, this passage, when he wrote.
When he wrote it. I don't know whether it's really known, Ganga-Lakshmi, but this now is Canto 10. So it's in the later stages of book 2. No? This may have happened during the war, or the Second World War.
Maybe before.
Or maybe after peace had come. So this actually brings to a close King 𝒔𝒊𝒈𝒂𝒕's exploration of the life worlds. We started back in Canto 3, and we've gone through all the intervening cantos. This one is Canto 9, so 6 cantos devoted to the different levels of life experience. And here 𝒔𝒊𝒈𝒂𝒕 has as if solved, in a way, the problem of life for himself. He's found this key, this secret key to nature's change, and it has brought him this experience of Ananda, which is immortalizing, transformative. Next time we come together, we'll embark on the kingdoms and godheads of the little mind. There's 2 long cantos about the mind come next.
This is the travel that did Sri Aurobindo.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what
the
we...
land of the Mother Terra.
Yes. There's, in a way, Sri Aurobindo has had all these experiences, and that's why he can tell us about them so powerfully and movingly. Extremely intense, both in pain, in anguish, and in delight. But now the mental worlds, it's a bit different. So we'll stop there for today. Thanks to Sri Aurobindo. All life's high visions are embodied there, her wandering hopes achieved, her aureate combs caught by the honey-eater's darting tongue, her burning guesses changed to ecstasied truths, her mighty pantings stilled in deathless calm, and liberated her immense desires. In that paradise of perfect heart and sense, no lower note could break the endless charm of her sweetness, ardent and immaculate. Her steps are sure of their intuitive fall. After the anguish of the soul's long strife, at length were found calm and celestial rest, and lapped in a magic flood of sorrowless hours, healed were his warrior nature's wounded limbs, in the encircling arms of energies that brooked no stain and feared not their own bliss. In scenes forbidden to our pallid sense, amid miraculous scents and wonder hues, he met the forms that divinize the sight. To music that can immortalize the mind and make the heart wide as infinity, listened. And captured the inaudible cadences that awake the occult ear. Out of the ineffable hush it hears them come, trembling with the beauty of a wordless speech, and thoughts too great and deep to find a voice. Thoughts whose desire new makes the universe. A scale of sense that climbed with fiery feet to heights of unimagined happiness, recast his being's aura in joy glow. His body glimmered like a skyey shell. His gates to the world were swept with seas of light. His earth, dowered with celestial competence, harbored a power that needed now no more to cross the closed customs line of mind and flesh and smuggle Godhead into humanity. It shrank no more from the supreme demand of an untired capacity for bliss. A might that could explore its own infinite, and beauty and passion and the depths reply, nor feared the swoon of glad identity, where spirit and flesh in inner ecstasy join, annulling the quarrel between self and shape. It drew from sight and sound spiritual power, made sense a road to reach the intangible. It thrilled with the supernal influences that build the substance of life's deeper soul. Earth nature stood reborn, comrade of heaven. A fit companion of the timeless kings, equalled with the Godheads of the living sons, he mixed in the radiant pastimes of the unborn, heard whispers of the player never seen, and listened to his voice that steals the heart and draws it to the breast of God's desire, and felt its honey of felicity flow through his veins like the rivers of paradise, made body a nectar cup of the Absolute. In sudden moments of revealing flame, in passionate responses half unveiled, he reached the rim of ecstasies unknown. A touch supreme surprised his hurrying heart. The clasp was remembered of the wonderful, and hints leaped down of white beatitudes. Eternity drew close, disguised as love, and laid its hand upon the body of time. A little gift comes from the immensitudes, but measureless to life its gain of joy. All the untold beyond is mirrored there. A giant drop of the bliss unknowable overwhelmed his limbs, and round his soul became a fiery ocean of felicity. He foundered, drowned in sweet and burning vasts. The dire delight that could shatter mortal flesh, the rapture that the gods sustain, he bore. Immortal pleasure cleansed him in its waves and turned his strength into undying power. Immortality captured time and carried life.